Billionaire grandma discovers a touching family heirloom on a waitress, sparks incredible life-changing connection. Martha wiped the counter with a damp cloth, the smell of pancakes and coffee wrapping around her like a well-worn embrace. The hum of conversations filled the bustling diner's air, dotted with laughter and the clinking of silverware. In her mid-30s, Martha had spent countless hours here, serving meals and smiles to the tight-knit community that had become her lifeline. With 2 kids at home and a mother fighting an unseen battle against illness, her heart beat with a relentless hope that pulled her through each day. Just then, the door swung open, and in walked Grace, the affluent elderly woman known around town as Billionaire Grandma. Her entrance always drew eyes. Her expensive threads and striking silver hair painted a picture of grandeur at odds with the cozy familiarity of the diner. Today, as she settled into her favorite booth, Martha felt that familiar twinge of blend of admiration and insecurity. She approached, her warm smile lighting up her face as she took Grace's order. They chatted. Grace's gaze fell on the delicate gold locket that Martha wore around her neck. Its surface glinted against the diner's bright lights. "What a lovely locket," Grace said softly. "Where did you get it?" In that moment, Martha felt a rawness ripple through her, the unspoken stories etched within the locket whispering memories of her late grandmother, love letters that chronicled a life of family, dreams, and unfulfilled promises. "It belonged to my grandmother," Martha replied, her voice steady despite the swell of emotions. "It's all I have left of her." A look of recognition passed across Grace's face, and with it, a deeper longing. "My sister had a locket just like that," she whispered, her voice almost breaking. Martha's heart raced. Could it be? The 2 women locked eyes, the connection throbbing with possibilities as unearthing emotions stirred within them. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The words hung in the air, the gap of years and pain threatening to collapse this fragile bridge between their disparate worlds. Grace, always surrounded by luxury, found herself yearning for a family bond she had lost long ago. Martha, driven by necessity, had become a beacon of resilience. As the warmth from their conversation deepened, so too did the complexities. But with newfound connection came challenges, as Grace offered to help Martha launch her own catering business, a lifeline in a storm of uncertainty. The very thought surprised Martha. Fear mixed with excitement danced in her chest. But would the community, with its whispers and judgments, welcome their bond? Their journey would not only test their friendship, but also reveal harsh truths about class divides and the struggle for dignity. Just as Martha began to grasp the potential of fresh beginnings, old biases came charging back like a wave crashing against the shore, and an emotional confrontation erupted, a questioning of worth, family, and the entangled strings of their past. As Martha and Grace stood on the precipice of life-altering decisions, anticipation filled the air. Both women were left confronting new emotions and unexpected truths. Would they manage to bridge the chasm between their worlds? All that remained was the flickering hope of a future where forgiveness and resilience could bloom amidst the uncertainty. The diner buzzed around them, the possibility of change lingering, waiting to be grasped. Martha took a deep breath, the weight of Grace's offer settling heavily on her heart. Launching a catering business was a dream she had buried under work shifts and school runs. The thought of making it a reality filled her with both excitement and dread. She glanced at Grace, who was watching her with an intensity that felt both hopeful and invasive. "I need to think about it," Martha replied, her hands absently fiddling with the locket. "It's a big step." "Of course," Grace said, her voice steady, yet there was an urgency beneath it. "Just know that you would never be alone in this. I would help you every step of the way." Martha could almost feel the chasm of their lives inching closer. It scared her. She didn't want anyone to view her as just another project, another charity case. It wasn't just about starting a business. It was about bringing her grandmother's legacy to life. Images of her grandmother bustling around the kitchen, creating magic from simple ingredients, sparked a fire deep within Martha. It was her anchor. "Let us meet later this week," Grace suggested, her bright eyes glimmering with enthusiasm. "We can brainstorm some ideas and see where this might lead." Martha nodded, a frail smile creeping onto her lips. The thoughts swirling in her head slowly began to crystallize. But standing there, she could also feel the prying eyes of the diner patrons weighing on her. Would they understand? Would they judge? Just then, the door swung open again, and in walked Jake, a single father who frequented the diner with his daughter. He sauntered up to the counter, and when he caught sight of Grace, his expression shifted from surprise to skepticism. The murmur of the crowd hushed, forming a bubble of tension around them. Jake had witnessed the divide between rich and poor too many times to count, and Martha could feel his uncertainty echoing through the diner. "Hey, Grace," he said, attempting to mask a slight edge in his tone. "What brings you here today?" Martha felt a prick of apprehension. Would Grace's presence draw unwanted attention? Jake wasn't he the only one who would think twice about two women from opposite ends of society sharing a table? The doubt was palpable in the air, thick like the steam rising from the coffee pots. "Just enjoying the best pancakes in town," Grace replied, unfazed. Her confidence was apparent. But Martha admired her courage even more. Perhaps it was time to channel that same bravery. As Jake turned his gaze to Martha, she noticed a flicker of curiosity mixed with concern. "Martha, you okay? You know you can count on us here if you need anything," he said, sincerity pouring from his voice. The familiarity of his care wrapped around her heart, steadying the tremors of intimidation. "I appreciate it, Jake. Really." It felt good to be supported, but a fresh wave of fear washed over her. If things took off with Grace, what would that mean for her relationships? Would her friends still see her as one of them? Or would she become an outsider in her own community? Martha pushed those thoughts aside, determined to embrace the possibility of change. Change was scary, yes, but it was also what her grandmother had always encouraged, a pursuit for more than just survival. Suddenly, as the conversation flowed, the diner door creaked open once more, and a familiar voice rang out. "Martha." Martha flinched as her heart plummeted. Her ex-husband, Tom, stood there, surveying the room with sharp eyes. Their last conversation had ended in tears and anger, still lingering like smoke in the air between them. "What did he want now? Can we talk?" he asked, his tone gruff. Everything shifted. Grace's concern mirrored her own, and everyday chatter faded into silence. Martha's heart raced as past memories collided with present fears. Was she ready to face this storm? And how would it impact her fragile dream, standing on the edge of a new beginning? As she locked eyes with Tom, uncertainty gripped her, whispering that maybe some changes were tougher than others. But somewhere in that chaos, hope flickered. Would she hold on to it, or let it slip through her fingers? Martha felt her heart pound in her chest as Tom stepped closer. The chatter of the diner faded into an unsettling silence, and she could sense the weight of judgment in the room, as if everyone had paused to witness the unfolding tension. His familiar face twisted into something unreadable. Was it anger, regret, or simply indifference? It didn't matter. All that mattered was the past that hung between them like a thick fog. "Now," Martha replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She could feel Grace's eyes on her, filled with encouragement, but no amount of support could shield her from the emotions surging like a tidal wave. "Yeah, now." Tom's brow furrowed, and he shifted on his feet. "It's important." Martha glanced at Grace, her stomach churning with uncertainty. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about the life and decisions that had led her to this moment. Was she ready to reopen old wounds? Tears threatened as memories flooded her mind, the laughter and love that had turned into arguments and silence. "Fine," she managed to say, pushing herself off the stool. She took a deep breath, bracing herself for the storm. The air crackled with tension as she led Tom outside, away from prying eyes. "Let us talk by the car," she suggested, trying to keep her voice steady. She could feel Jake's gaze piercing her back, a reminder of the guy who had always been there, always supportive even in her darkest times. Once outside, the autumn air hit her face, sharp and refreshing. Leaves crunched underfoot, emphasizing the weight of their conversation. Tom leaned against his car, arms crossed, and Martha could see how tightly he held on to his composure. "Martha, I'm sorry," he started, his voice low. "For everything. Can we not make this harder than it needs to be? I want us to work as a team for Emma." Martha hesitated, that familiar tug of shared responsibility pulling at her heart. Emma, their daughter, was the thread woven through their chaotic history. "What do you want from me, Tom?" she asked, her voice shaking slightly despite her efforts to stay strong. "I just think we could talk about co-parenting more seriously," he continued, softening just a bit. "You don't have to shut me out, especially now with everything changing." Her heart raced at the idea of change, not the change she had envisioned with Grace, but a different kind of upheaval. "You mean the kind of change where you come in and out whenever it suits you?" "That's not fair," he shot back, frustration flaring in his tone. "I want to be a part of Emma's life. I don't trust you, Tom." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Somehow they felt like a raw truth that needed to be said, yet they uncovered a wound so deep it left both of them silent for a moment. "No one's asking you to trust me overnight. I know I messed up," Tom said, his voice lower and more vulnerable. "Please, let us just find a way to make this work." For her. Martha looked away, fighting against the weight of his plea. Could she really set aside their past? Was it fair to ask for that? To expect a change when trust had been broken? As the silence enveloped them, she felt an itch of doubt worm its way into her heart. Just as she began to respond, the familiar jingle of the diner's bell sounded in the background, cutting through the heavy air. "Martha," Grace's voice rang out, soft yet urgent just outside the door. "Is everything okay?" The sound brought Martha back to the moment, a reminder of everything she stood to gain or lose. She turned back to Tom, searching for the answer, but all she saw was uncertainty reflected in his eyes. "I need to think about it," she stammered, taking a step back. As she walked away, she could feel both their worlds pulling at her. She was standing on a precipice, teetering between her old life and the new dreams that were just beginning to flutter in her chest. And as she reached Grace, her heart ached with the possibility of change, but dread loomed large in her mind. Was she really prepared to let go of the pain and redefine her family for Emma's sake? The door swung shut behind them, sealing away the remnants of the past. But as Martha tucked her hair behind her ears and took a breath, she couldn't shake the sense that the hardest decisions were yet to come. What would follow her choice? Would it carve a path to healing or lead her deeper into the storm? Martha walked back into the diner, the warmth inside contrasting sharply with the chill of the autumn air. The familiar smells of coffee and greasy burgers filled her nostrils, but it did little to ease the knot in her stomach. Grace was already at the counter, leaning forward like she was bracing for the news. "Did he hurt you?" Grace's eyes widened, concern flooding her voice. No. Martha shook her head, forcing a smile she didn't fully feel. "It's not like that. It's complicated." "Complicated how?" "You're not going to fall back into his arms, are you?" Grace's tone was protective, a solid wall between Martha and the past. Martha glanced over at Tom from the window. He was still leaning against his car, his expression unreadable. "I don't know. Maybe it's not about falling back. Maybe it's about making things work for Emma." "Emma?" Grace echoed, biting her lip. "You should think about yourself first. You can't fix him. Not anymore." Taking a deep breath, Martha crossed her arms. "I need to plan something that doesn't involve old scars." Grace nodded slowly, her expression still worried. "Okay, let us sit down. Talk through this." They settled into a booth, the familiar vinyl sticking slightly to Martha's skin. The diner bustled around them, but the noise faded into a dull hum, making the moment feel intensely private. "What if you really let him in?" Grace asked, sipping her coffee. "What if you gave him a chance to be part of Emma's life?" "Trust takes time," Martha replied, tracing the rim of her glass absent-mindedly. "I can't just divide my heart like that. I don't know if I can forgive him, let alone rethink everything for Emma." At that moment, the bell over the door jingled again, and Martha looked up. Jake walked in, his presence like a steady beam in the storm of her thoughts. His usual casual confidence seemed gauged down this time. He approached them with a seriousness that caught Martha off guard. "Hey," Jake greeted, glancing between Martha and Grace. I heard about Tom. You okay?" "Just peachy," Martha replied with forced cheer, but met his gaze unflinchingly. Jake shifted, leaning against the wall nearby. "You know you don't have to do this alone. You've got people who care about you. I'm trying to do what's right for Emma, she said quietly, her heart beginning to tremble at the idea of asking for help. But I don't know what that looks like anymore. Caring for Emma doesn't mean you have to run back to Tom, Jake said, lowering his voice. What if you set clear boundaries with him? Talk it out in a way that protects you? Martha sighed, feeling the exhaustion wash over her. What if I fail? What if my attempts to get it right only make it worse? That's life, Martha. Grace touched her hand on the table. We don't always get it right. But you won't know unless you try to find your footing. She stared at her hands, a mix of hope and fear swirling inside. What if finding my footing means putting up walls? Maybe it's okay to start rebuilding, Jake said softly. You're stronger than you think. The first step is figuring out what you want. With those words hanging in the air, a realization began to blossom within Martha. Could wanting something different be the key to not only her happiness, but also Emma's? Her thoughts raced as she looked back up at Grace, then to Jake. I think I want to talk to him. Not to mend things with Tom, but to set some rules. As a wave of determination washed over her, the weight of uncertainty made room for possibility. Yet, as she prepared to face the tumultuous conversation ahead, a sudden feeling of dread washed over her. What would happen when she made her expectations clear? Just then, her phone buzzed on the table, drawing her attention. It was a text from Tom. Can we talk again? I need to know what you're thinking. Her heart raced at the thought of the confrontation to come. Could she really outline her terms without unraveling everything? The gathering storm of emotions inside her signaled that the hardest stage of this journey was about to begin, a moment that could change everything once again. What awaited her in that conversation? Martha felt a shiver of anticipation. It would be the moment to stand her ground, but at what cost? Martha's fingers trembled around her phone, the screen radiating warmth as she stared at Tom's text. Each word felt heavy, like stones sinking in her gut. She glanced up, meeting the concerned gaze of Grace, who clearly sensed the shift in the air. Jake's brow furrowed as he stood beside her, hands shoved deep in his pockets, silently offering his support. I can't do this, Martha breathed, the fear bubbling to the surface. What if he doesn't understand? What if I can't get through to him? Then you'll deal with it, Grace said firmly. Wherever this goes, you'll handle it, one way or another. But you have to be honest with him. For your sake and Emma's. Martha nodded slowly, trying to harbor the growing resolve within her. Something had shifted in her. Maybe it was the realization that she could no longer be the victim of Tom's choices. She had to take control, not just for herself, but for Emma, who deserved stability. I'll reply, Martha finally said, her voice steadying. Grace and Jake watched closely, their unwavering belief in her giving her strength. She began typing, her fingers flying across the screen as she dictated her thoughts. Let's South meet at the park tomorrow. I want to talk about our future, Emma's future. A mere few words, but they carried the weight of 1,000 questions and fears. After hitting send, a nervous rush spread through her, like caffeine coursing its way through her veins. Okay, it's done, she announced, trying to mask her uncertainty with bravado. Good. Now we just wait, Jake said, trying to inject a lightness into the moment. But inside, Martha felt anything but light. She could almost taste the air growing heavy with anticipation. As the day wore on, Martha found herself stuck in a whirlpool of thoughts. Each scenario playing out in her head had its own twists: Tom's anger, confusion, or perhaps, worst of all, his heartbreak. Yet a flicker of hope sparked at the possibility of a new beginning if only they could find their way to understanding. Want to go for a walk? Grace suggested, noticing Martha's restless energy. Clear your head before you meet him. Martha agreed, and they stepped outside, the cool air hitting her like a splash of cold water. The golden leaves danced down from the trees, swirling in the brisk breeze as they made their way down the familiar path to the park. With every step, Martha could feel her heart begin to settle. Nature had a way of grounding her, a constant reminder that change was possible. She whirled her gaze around, taking in the laughter of children, the soft rustle of leaves, and the warmth of the sunset casting a golden hue over everything. Whatever happens tomorrow, just remember, Grace started, pausing as if choosing her words carefully. You're making the right choices for you and Emma, even if it feels terrifying. Yeah, I'm realizing that, Martha admitted, a sense of clarity pushing through the fog of her anxiety. It's just, I can't lose myself again. Not for him. I did that once, and it only led to heartbreak. Exactly. Protect yourself while you're doing this, Jake chimed in. You're strong enough to set those boundaries, and that strength will lead you to the right path, whatever it looks like. Martha smiled weakly, the two people beside her acting as her anchors. They came to a stop near the community fountain, droplets of water glimmering in the fading light. Tomorrow will be hard, no doubt, but think of it as flipping the page, Grace encouraged. You're ready to write a new chapter, one that's yours. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Martha felt a surge of resolve. She would meet with Tom not to return to him, but to build a healthier dynamic. Opening the door to that conversation meant navigating through every emotion that had come before. Except, as she turned to head home, her phone buzzed again. Sweeping her hair from her face, she checked the screen. Another message from Tom, this time carrying the weight of urgency. I really need to talk about Emma. Please. A pang of fear gripped her heart, the world around her blurring slightly as panic seeped in. Was he really ready to discuss their daughter? Or was it all just another moment of chaos waiting to unfold? Grace, Martha started, but the words lodged in her throat. What if tomorrow didn't just redefine their relationship, but threaten the fragile semblance of peace she had just begun to cultivate? With that thought clenching her chest, Martha realized the conversation was only the beginning. Would she be ready for whatever revelations lay ahead? Tomorrow held both the threat and promise of change, and as she navigated through this uncertain future, one crucial question hung in the air. Could she truly face whatever revelations awaited her? Martha's night was restless. The weight of Tom's message replayed in her mind like a broken record, each loop dredging up fresh waves of anxiety. Every time she closed her eyes, images flickered Tom's face full of pleading, both of them standing in the park under the watchful eyes of the trees. It was a simmering pot of uncertainty, a recipe bound to erupt. Morning broke with the soft golden light creeping through her bedroom curtains, yet Martha felt heavy. With each chime of the clock, she mentally counted down the minutes to her meeting. As she slipped out of bed and prepared for the day, Emma's laughter echoed from the living room. The innocence of it pulled her back to the present, giving her a moment of respite. Okay, focus on Emma, she whispered to herself. She deserves the best. After a quick breakfast, Martha offered Emma encouragement for her day, showering her daughter with kisses before heading out. The anticipation of the upcoming conversation tightened her stomach. The park was alive with families, and as she approached it, a knot of uncertainty gripped her heart. What would she say? Would Tom listen? A few moments later, she spotted Tom sitting on their familiar bench, looking older and wearier than she remembered. His hair was slightly longer, and the scruff on his jaw gave him a rugged look, but despite the years that had passed, he was still undeniably him. For a moment, she hesitated, the image of who he was battling against who he had been. Martha, he said, his voice breaking through the sea of thoughts. His tone was different, softer, almost pleading. Thanks for coming, Tom. She nodded, her voice steady even as adrenaline surged through her. She took a seat on the other end of the bench, putting some distance between them. The air was thick with unspoken words and memories. I got your message, he continued, his gaze shifting to the ground as he fidgeted with something in his pocket. I've been thinking a lot about Emma, about my role and my past mistakes. Martha held her breath, feeling a flicker of hope intertwined with the fear. What do you mean? He hesitated, clearly searching for the right words. I thought being away was for the best, but being away from her, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. I thought it would get easier. He paused, his voice a husky whisper. It hasn't. The pain in his eyes cut deep. But you didn't just hurt yourself when you left, Tom, she said, her voice trembling. Emma has been affected too. We've both been affected. You have to understand that coming back means stepping up. I know, he said urgently, leaning forward, the tension radiating off him. I want to, Martha. I'm trying to make things right. She deserves more than I've given her. Can you let me be part of her life again? It felt like they were dangling at the edge, hovering over a chasm filled with emotion and uncertainty. It's not that simple, she replied, choking back the tears. You need to show us you're committed, not just in words, but in actions. His expression morphed into something vulnerable, revealing the weight of regret. I'll do anything, he said earnestly. I'll prove it. Give me a chance. For a moment, silence fell between them, heavy with implications. Could she really trust him to keep his word? Images of Emma's laughter rushed through her. Would that laughter continue in a world where Tom was present, or would it be tainted by the past? Just as she resolved to speak, a small blonde girl rushed by holding a balloon tightly, her laughter bubbling into the air. Martha's heart broke open at the sight, the juxtaposition of innocence stirring the depths of her soul. Taking a deep breath, she felt the weight of the choice ahead. If we're going to do this, it can't be a half-hearted effort. It must come from a place of love and responsibility. Emma deserves to have a father who won't walk away again. Tom's eyes glistened. I can't go back to that place. I swear to you, Martha. I'll be there for her, for both of you. As they locked eyes, the possibility hung in the air, a tentative bridge over troubled waters. But as Martha sensed a shift within, another message buzzed in her pocket. She pulled out her phone and glanced at the screen. It wasn't from Tom, but from Grace, reading, "I'm worried. Call me when you can." The unease began to envelop her again. Why would Grace be worried? With rising anxiety, she glanced back at Tom, a confusing mixture of hope and dread swirling inside her. Could this meeting pave the way for healing, or was it only the beginning of a much longer journey entangled with secrets still hidden? Martha felt her heart race, bracing herself for whatever was about to unfold next. Martha pocketed her phone, the words from Grace swirling around in her mind like a storm. The gravity of her situation pressed down on her shoulders. Here she was, facing Tom after years of silence, trying to carve out a new path for Emma. Yet the sudden tension with Grace lingered like a dark cloud overhead. "Martha?" Tom's voice pulled her from her spiraling thoughts. His eyes were searching, as if trying to figure out what was going on behind the walls she had carefully built. "I'm sorry," she said, shaking her head slightly to clear it. I need a moment." As she glanced around the park, the vibrant colors and joyful sounds felt almost foreign. Children were running, couples were laughing, and yet she felt stuck in an emotional quicksand. Could she really allow Tom to drift back into their lives? What if he left again? Tom leaned back, his hands resting between them on the bench. "Just tell me what you're feeling," he urged softly. Martha took a deep breath, feeling the crisp air fill her lungs. "I want to believe you, Tom. I do. But there's so much at stake." "Emma," her voice wavered. "She's been through a lot. We've both had to adjust to a life without you. I don't want her to get hurt again." Tom's face tightened. "I understand. More than you know. I don't expect to waltz back in and be the hero. He broke off, something flickering in his expression. "I've been looking for a way to make it right. I can't undo the past, but I want to be there for you both going forward." They sat in silence, the weight of the conversation heavy in the air. Time seemed to stretch, and Martha's heart beat fiercely against her ribcage, caught between trust and fear. "Remember the last time we talked?" Martha ventured, breaking the silence. "You said it was for the best. You'd be better off away from us." Tom winced. "I wish I could take those words back," he admitted. "I was so scared. I thought keeping my distance would be easier, but it just made everything worse. I never wanted to abandon you too." His raw honesty struck her, cutting through the fog of resentment she had harbored. But even with a glimmer of hope sparking in her chest, doubts gnawed at her. "Grace is worried," she said suddenly, the thought bubbling out before she could stop it. "She just messaged me. She wouldn't be texting if something wasn't wrong. I don't know what's going on, but she knows things are shaky right now. She wouldn't tell me unless it was important." Tom's brow furrowed. "Grace? Your sister?" "Yeah, she's more than just my sister," Martha replied, feeling an urge to protect Emma's world, to keep both Tom and secrets at bay. "She's kind of my guardian angel. If she's worried, it might mean everything is about to get complicated." Tom paused, a look of determination crossing his features. "We can tackle whatever it is together. But I need you to trust me not just today, but moving forward. Can you do that?" The sincerity in his voice almost melted away her doubts. Almost. She rubbed her temples, fighting against the rising tide of her emotions. "I want to, but I'm not sure how yet." "Let me help," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm going to prove to you that I'm not the man I used to be. I promise I'll be there every step of the way." The air crackled with the weight of expectation, but Martha felt something flicker, a need to bridge this chasm. Yet, just as she opened her mouth to speak, The sharp tone of her phone broke through the moment, an urgent ring echoing in the stillness. Once again, she grabbed it and grimaced at the screen. Her heart dropped. It was Grace again. This time, it read, "Martha, please call me. It's serious." She looked at Tom, fear flickering in her eyes. "I have to take this," she said, the urgency pulling at her gut. "Go," he replied, his voice steady, but she could see the concern threading through his expression. "I'll be right here." As she walked away, her heart racing, she felt a tide of uncertainty wash over her. What could possibly be so serious? And would it change everything she had just begun to face? Martha held the phone tightly, feeling everything she had hoped for teeter on the brink of collapse. Would her sister's news shatter the fragile truce they had started to build? Or could it be the very thing they needed to face their challenges together? Martha pressed the call button, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. Each ring felt like a countdown to something she wasn't prepared for. When Grace's familiar voice finally came through, it was laced with urgency, and the warmth she'd always known was tangled with something darker. "Martha, thank God you picked up," Grace said, her words tumbling over each other. "I didn't know how else to reach you. It's Emma, there's something going on at school." Martha's stomach plummeted. "What do you mean? What happened?" "Just it's not good. There are rumors, Martha, about her father. The kids at school, they've been saying things. They don't understand what happened. They're calling her names, and it's breaking her heart." Grace rushed out, each word hitting harder than the last. Martha closed her eyes for a brief moment, fighting back tears. The storm she had tried so hard to shield Emma from was crashing in. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she managed to ask, her voice trembling. "I thought I could handle it, but it just keeps getting worse." "I didn't want to disturb the new balance you were trying to find with Tom." Grace's voice cracked. "But she's really hurting, and I don't know how to make it stop." Martha opened her eyes, staring blankly at the vibrant park that suddenly felt like a desolate wasteland. She had fought so hard to keep Emma safe from the pain of their past, and now it threatened to engulf them both. "Where's Emma now?" she asked urgently, her mind racing. "I need to see her." "She's at home. I told her to stay there, but she's scared and confused." "I'll come over and we can figure this out together," Grace said, her tone calming slightly. "Thank you," Martha breathed, relief flooding her as she sensed Grace's steadfastness. She needed that strength now more than ever. Martha hung up and turned back toward Tom, who had been patiently waiting. The expression on his face shifted as he saw the worry etched deep into her brow. "What's wrong?" he asked, rising to his feet. "Emma, she's in trouble at school. Kids are being cruel. I need to get to her," Martha said, urgency propelling her forward. Tom hesitated for a moment, a mix of emotions playing across his features. "Maybe I should come with you," he said. "No," she said sharply, shaking her head. The thought of bringing Tom into what felt like an imminent crisis felt too risky. "This is just between me, Grace, and Emma for now." The hurt in Tom's eyes was unmistakable, but Martha could feel the need to protect Emma stronger than anything else. "I'll call you once I'm there," she added, softening her tone, though her heart felt like it was being pulled in two different directions. "Martha, wait." Tom reached out, grasping her wrist gently. "Just know that I'm here. I want to help. You don't have to face this alone." She looked into his eyes, searching for reassurance, for something to hold onto amidst the chaos of her thoughts. "I know," she said quietly, "but this is my job right now. I need to be there for her." With that, she pulled away and rushed towards her car, swallowing the lump in her throat. As she drove through the bustling streets, every beat of her heart echoed with thoughts of Emma's hurt. She pictured her daughter, her bright eyes filled with confusion and sorrow. How could she explain the decision she had made? Pulling into the driveway, Martha felt a sense of dread creep over her. She took a moment to breathe before stepping out of the car. As she approached the front door, she could feel the weight of everything crashing down on her. Grace was waiting for her, concern etched across her face. "Is she okay?" Grace asked hurriedly, her hands fidgeting. Martha opened the door, the dread pooling in her stomach. "I don't know yet, but we need to make sure she knows we're in this together." As they stepped inside, a sense of urgency rushed through Martha. This was bigger than just whispers from classmates. It was about Emma's heart. What would they say to heal her? How would they shield her from the world's cruelties? In that moment, she realized they were walking into a battle, one that shook the very foundation of the family she'd been trying to rebuild. Would it tear them apart, or would it forge an unbreakable bond? And as they entered the living room, Martha prepared herself for whatever storm awaited them next. She could only hope it would pull them closer rather than shatter the fragile peace they had just begun to build. But under it all, lingering in her thoughts, was the one question that echoed louder than any other. Was she really ready to face the truth? Martha stepped into the living room, where the air was thick with tension. Emma was curled up on the sofa, her knees pulled tightly to her chest. The TV flickered with the muted sound of a cartoon, but Emma stared blankly at the screen, lost in her own world. The bright colors of animated characters danced around her, yet they felt like a cruel reminder of how far removed she was from joy at that moment. "Emma," Martha called, her voice soft yet steady. She crossed the room, her heart aching at the sight of her daughter. Emma didn't respond, her gaze fixed somewhere far away, as if she were on an entirely different planet. Grace moved quietly beside Martha. Together, they sat on the edge of the couch. "Hey, sweetie, can we talk?" Grace gently asked, hoping to coax Emma from her silence. After a moment, Emma turned her head slowly, her big brown eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I don't want to," she whispered, voice cracking. Even that single sentence held a weight that crushed Martha's heart. "I know. I really know it's hard," Martha said, feeling her own eyes prickle with tears. "People can be thoughtless. But I want you to hear something from us, okay? You are not alone in this. Not ever. We love you." Emma looked down, biting her lip. The silence grew heavier, but Martha held her breath, determined not to let despair win. "What have the kids been saying?" she finally asked. Emma hesitated. They say I'm cursed," she murmured. That because of him she paused, squeezing her eyes shut as if blocking out the world. "They say it's my fault that my dad left." Martha felt her heart shatter into pieces. This was worse than she had imagined. "Sweetheart, please listen to me," she said, leaning closer. "What happened with your dad was never your fault. He made his choices, and it had nothing to do with you." Emma shook her head, tears now streaming down her cheeks. "But they don't understand. They don't know what it's like for me." Martha took a deep breath, reaching out to tuck a loose strand of hair behind Emma's ear. "Grace and I, we want to help you deal with this," she said, her voice steady. "You have every right to feel hurt, to feel angry. But we can face this together." Grace slid closer, her expression softening as she shared a glance with Martha. "You can tell us anything, Emma, even if it feels too big or scary. We won't let you face it alone." Slowly, Emma nodded, uncertainty still lingering in her gaze. It was a small victory, but it was a start. "What if they never stop saying those things?" she whispered. "Then we'll make sure you know what's true," Martha replied firmly. "You are so much more than what those kids say. You're brave and kind. And no matter what friends or bullies you've got us, we'll always stand by you." As Emma wiped her tears, a flicker of hope crossed her face, a soft light stirring in her once dull eyes. Grace smiled at that small change, and Martha felt a fragile peace settle over her. They had taken the first step toward healing. But just as Martha thought they were making progress, the doorbell rang, slicing through their intimate moment like a jagged knife. The sudden sound sent a ripple of tension through the room. "Who could that be?" Grace asked, her brow furrowing as she exchanged worried looks with Martha. "I don't know," Martha replied, a knot tightening in her stomach. "But let me check." As Martha opened the door, her breath caught in her throat. Standing on the other side was someone she never expected to see again, someone who could change everything for Emma. "Hi, Martha. We need to talk." Martha stood frozen at the door, her heart pounding in a rhythm of confusion and disbelief. Before her stood Tom's sister, Sarah, someone who had been a constant presence in their lives during happier times. This was a woman who had always put family first and faced every storm with unwavering determination. But now, there was an unmistakable heaviness in Sarah's gaze that sent alarms ringing in Martha's mind. "Sarah," she said, barely managing to catch her breath. "What are you doing here?" "I heard about Emma," Sarah replied, her voice just above a whisper, tinged with concern. "I thought it might help if I came to talk. I was worried, especially considering everything with Tom." Martha's gut tightened at the mention of Tom. She sighed. "She's hurting. Kids at school are being cruel." Her voice wavered, but she felt a fierce urge to guard Emma. "I know. That's what I wanted to talk to you about," Sarah said, stepping into the living room as Martha reluctantly opened the door wider. She could see Grace's questioning eyes on her, and Emma's infinitely curious ones watching from the sofa. "Martha," Sarah ventured, approaching Emma slowly. "I'm really sorry you're dealing with this. You didn't deserve it, and I want you to know that we all love you very much." Emma blinked, surprise washing over her. "You do?" "Of course we do," Sarah said, kneeling down until she was eye level with Emma. "You are a brave girl, and what happened to your dad was not your fault. I know things have been tough, but I want to help." Martha felt her own heart begin to lift at Sarah's gentle approach. Perhaps this was exactly what Emma needed, a support system larger than the three of them. "But I don't understand why he left," Emma whispered, her innocence breaking Martha's heart all over again. "No one can fully understand that, sweetheart," Sarah said, quietly but firmly. "Your dad made mistakes. What matters is that we love you. What matters is how we can support you moving forward." Martha exchanged a quick glance with Grace, her heart pounding with gratitude. Maybe Sarah's arrival wasn't just a coincidence, it was a chance for Emma to see that family, even in its tumult, could stand strong together. "Would it help if we talked about it?" Sarah offered, gesturing toward the couch. "I'd like to hear how you're feeling." After a long pause, Emma nodded faintly, and Sarah sat beside her, creating a safe space between them. Martha watched the two, hope blooming within her. Maybe this sisterly bond would create a bridge towards healing for Emma, as well as a chance for forgiveness and understanding in their own family. Meanwhile, the door closed silently behind Martha, and a warm rush of reassurance washed over her. She turned to Grace, who smiled, pride shimmering in her eyes. As conversation began to flow more easily between Sarah and Emma, Martha felt lighter. The tension that had gripped her heart began to dissipate, replaced by determination to ensure Emma knew she was cherished beyond measure. "Martha, I know this is complicated with Tom," Grace said quietly, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Just remember that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to forgive, even when it feels impossible. You're not alone in raising Emma." Martha nodded thoughtfully, feeling reflective. Maybe healing didn't mean erasing the past, but rekindling the love hidden underneath the scars. Once the initial hurt from Tom's absence started to ease, maybe together they could redefine not just their family, but also the relationships they'd built from now on. Hope lingered like a warm breeze, carrying with it the belief that they could expand this sacred circle of support. As Sarah continued to reassure and uplift Emma, Martha took a moment, embracing the significance of her fireside chat with Grace. She understood now. Yes, family was complicated, but love always found a way to grow anew. "Martha," Grace said, breaking her thoughts as they both quietly watched Emma and Sarah share a laugh, lightness cutting through the storm. "It's time to move forward," Martha whispered, the realization settling into her heart. "Not just for you, but for Emma too," Grace smiled encouragingly. "We are writing a new chapter together." As the sun dipped low in the sky, painting their lives with colors of promise and resilience, Martha felt a quiet determination take root. They would face whatever storms came together, bound by love, strengthened by forgiveness, and stepping into that grace felt like the first heartbeat of a family reborn. Now, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to stay updated on our journey. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm and help others discover the power of healing. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about this emotional conclusion. Don't wait not even one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, let us spread hope and resilience.